hop in and introduce him. This is Esteban. I think that I first met Esteban at the very first BSides Portland, which he's one of the several who got this ball rolling to the Sisyphean boulder that it is rolling down the hill right now. And when he submitted this presentation, it was obviously great, so we accepted it. But he asked for, in the speaker notes, like special requests, he asked for therapy puppies to hand out to the audience. So I have a bag of therapy puppies that I'm going to put up here, and he can give out to you if he decides that you need a therapy puppy. They are not live puppies. They were never live puppies, but they're little soft puppies on little blankets, and if you press here, so thank you for presenting. Do what you think needs to happen with these therapy dogs, and take good care of them.
I'm gonna cry. Thanks, Joe. This microphone setup is awkward. Hello, my name is Esteban Gutierrez. I'm the Director of Information Security at a company called New Relic. It's a local software application performance analytics, digital analytics company. And I really love working there. I've given this talk a couple times before, and can you all hear me okay? No? All right, I'm going to do this. It means I can't really move very much, so yeah, that's better. Let me start over. So, my name is Esteban Gutierrez. I'm the Director of Information Security at New Relic. We love this conference. We think it makes life better for everybody. My talk is about security as Nurturance. I've been with New Relic for about 2.5, almost 3 years, and I work as part of a pretty great team of people. We've got product security, infrastructure and operations security, building a program there. Not entirely from scratch, but building a program that takes a lot of learnings from how things have not gone well in other companies. I kind of feel like sometimes the people that come to work at New Relic are getting over PTSD from working at other companies. And they spend like a good month and a half or sometimes a year going, what is this place? Why is everyone so nice? What do you mean I don't have to work after 5? And it's sort of one of the first companies I've worked at that takes the human part of work very seriously, because we recognize that it's not possible to get your best work unless you're living your best life, which doesn't involve, peeing into a cup at 4 in the morning as you're trying to reboot a bunch of servers or something like that, because you can't get away from your monitor. Before New Relic, I was at Intel for 10 years and was the cloud security person there for a while, did some IT security work there as part of the risk management program. Learned a lot of stuff there. And before that, I ran a security operations center for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers based here out of Portland. That was a very, very interesting time. I was there for a good number of years, probably about 15, and with a quick stint doing startup stuff during the .com bubble days. I worked for a company called Webvan. How many of you have heard of Webvan? I've got some swag later on, maybe, so. Definitely not the expired stock certificates that are worth like 0.0000003 cents or something like that, so. But it was the biggest .com failure. It was an incredible experience there. We built a lot of stuff out really fast. It was the first company that was really, really focused on doing online food grocery deliveries. And it was started by John Borders of Borders Books and Music, so a lot of people thought it was a pretty good bet. But it kind of died under the weight of real estate. And I turned off the lights there, basically. So I got my start Doing linguistics in college, I was just thinking about the keynote this morning and how wonderful that talk was, and how a lot of the people that I know have come up in the ranks by not through traditional means. And I'm a big proponent of that stuff. And I think she really helped to clarify some things that I really believe strongly about. I've generally referred to it as aptitude, like this, the desire, the knowledge, the desire to get knowledge, the desire to figure stuff out, not leave stuff alone because, you know, it's a challenge, it's a puzzle. But I really like the way that she couched a lot of those concepts and specific items around what those things are and the examples that she gave. So if you didn't catch the keynote, I'm pretty sure there'll be a recording of it. So my talk is about how metaphors we use in security culture, specifically about how a change in these metaphors that we as security practitioners commonly use to frame our approach to information security can result in changes about what we can accomplish. And this talk is definitely based on my 20 whatever years of doing information security. I think we've been doing things really poorly. There's a lot of things that happen well, but there's a lot of stuff that doesn't happen very well at all. And mostly we end up just making people feel shitty. I think we need to change all that, and this change needs to happen in the security industry and perhaps in the tech culture in general. And I think we're starting to see some of those changes occur. We need to change how we connect to our work, to the organizations we work for, and to the people we're trying to help. And to change the way we use our knowledge, values, skills, and tools to address the risks and dangers that keep people from being both safe and successful in their work and their business and their lives. And changes that sustain a culture that helps people do the things that are important to them, instead of having a culture that penalizes and shames them into compliance. In my experience, infosec really isn't seen as an enabler, and it's not very connected to the business or to what people are doing. The way they're trying to work, the things they're working on. Security teams are often described as obstacles, hard to work with, adversarial, dogmatic. They work in a culture that's often cold, secretive, and paranoid, a culture that I think is unsustainable. I think there's a lot of us working to bring the importance of connection to our industry, as some of the talks that we've already heard today have pointed out. And doing a better job of addressing the challenges that are relevant to enabling our own and the success of the companies we work for. And hopefully to sustain a culture that truly protects people safely and do the things that are important to them. Many security departments practice a culture that could be described using the metaphor information security as warfare. I posit that that's actually a big reason why things are going so poorly, and why security teams are often seen negatively and people run away or say things like, oh gosh, I hope I never see you, when they walk past your area during their first day in the office. And I also think that's one of the reasons why the industry is so self-defeating. Teams are seen as adversarial, rigid, and unconnected. So I offer a different metaphor. Information security is nurturance, which I believe leads to more successful outcomes and to doing things in ways that are probably even more comprehensive and can take advantage of more of what people have to offer and what people can do. Before we get to nurturance, let's talk about metaphors. Why do I believe metaphors are so important? Before I came into my career in information security, I studied cognitive linguistics here at Reed College. And some of that work involved how language, its structure and use, influence our conceptualization of the world. Some of you may have heard or read a book by George Lakoff and Mark Johnson called Metaphors We Live By. It's a fantastic read. It's pretty quick. And it's got some age behind it now, so I think it's written in the 80s. And George Lakoff has since gone on to do a bunch of writing based on this work in political discourse. He's written extensively over the last 25 years about metaphors and the influence they have on everyday life. This book explores how everyday language is filled with conceptual metaphors that we often don't even notice we're using. We can't avoid using metaphorical ideas in both our language and thinking. It is a deeply ingrained part of how we communicate. Conceptual metaphors help our understanding and experience of one idea or domain in terms of another. So we not only borrow words from one domain and apply it to the other, we often bring the attitudes and the ideals, both positive and negative, along with them. Metaphors frame how we think, communicate, learn, discover, and understand ourselves and each other. So the metaphors we use consciously and subconsciously or unconsciously drive culture and practices arising from that culture. And in short, metaphors influence culture and culture defines practice. So let's take a well-used metaphor like time is money. We often say things like, don't waste my time, or I've invested a lot of time in this project. We've spent a lot of time fixing security bugs, so why do I want to do more? We tend to value saving money, so we tend to be pretty stingy with our time, and that has an impact on how we behave with respect to ideas like downtime and rest, self-care as versus work, like work-life balance. Quality time. I have a hard time feeling good about downtime, and it's something I've been striving to fix in myself. Many of us find it hard not to do work from home, even when we encourage people not to do so. And we end up in a culture that prioritizes productivity and profit over self-care and rest. And so now back to information security. The goal of information security, as you all know, is to protect an organization's systems, software, and data, but most of all, to protect the business and the people involved with it and the goals of the business. And I think that's an important point that's often lost on people. Doing the work of information security is obviously really challenging. I mean, there's a lot of people here who want to learn how to do it better. And business wants to move fast, and technology constantly evolves and changes. So it's not enough to just learn one aspect of security and call it good. You actually have to be learning things all the time. The scale and speed of development leaves little time to check every configuration file, access list, and default password, and bit of insecure code. Software, code, hardware, age, and gain technical debt, which I know probably a lot of you have a similar experience to me. Like, technical debt is one of the worst security issues that's out there that's hard to solve. And some of this debt requires a lot of toil, like security patching and reboots. And there's a lot of examples of how companies fail to meet their goals to secure and protect the company. Just every day in the news, there's more incidents, more breaches, malware infections, more deployments of Windows. And breaches are routinely reported in news. In my role now as a director, I'm spending a lot more time talking to like other companies, general counsels, and that kind of stuff. And it's incredible. It's incredible the questions that come from people when they suspect something is wrong. And I think that's the thing. Like, there's always something wrong, right? And so while infosec teams try to educate, review, scan, and monitor, and do all the work of risk management, from the trenches every day as we watch, defenses are breached, credentials are stolen, data is leaked, and businesses are compromised. And while there are other metaphors that can be used to describe information security, such as hygiene or healthcare or firefighting, as some, there's actually an interesting paper by NIST done about 10 years ago that actually I found after putting this talk together that goes over different metaphors that are used in security specifically. The paradigm represented by information security as warfare seems to dominate the industry. And when we frame information security by borrowing the words of warfare, the attitudes and ideas that come with them create and perpetuate practices that make it even more challenging to meet our goals. If information security is warfare, we're not winning. And I would argue that it's not something you can win. It's not about winning. We see this metaphor's influence in the language of our practices. We talk about demilitarized zones, bastion servers. We practice defense in depth. We collect and monitor intelligence streams. We do intrusion monitoring. Protect against DOS attacks. We worry about spyware. And can we detect that command and control channel that's controlling the botnet that's, you know, doing who knows what to our finance systems? We worry about advanced persistent threats. I was trying to hold myself not making a joke about advanced APT threats. We work on threat models and attack simulations. We secure the perimeter. We do red teaming and we explore kill chains. Even casual reporting on information security uses terms like cyber war in their headlines to fluff stuff up. And many security vendors use the fear of losing the war as a reason to give them lots of money. A culture of warfare is one of secrecy, adversaries, and it drives the need for urgent action against enemies. Adversarial thinking leads to treating everyone as a potential enemy, locked in a conflict that needs to be won. And that's a kind of zero-sum thinking that leads to security becoming a means to an end. It perpetuates the idea that security is not something that everyone needs to practice, but something that's left to cyber warriors, cyber ninjas, that can deploy expensive security tools and come out on top. All of this became apparent to me one day when I heard a fellow security professional exclaim, if only we didn't have to deal with stupid users, we wouldn't have to put in so many controls. I've also heard things like, if only people didn't click on links, we would be safe. And if we're setting ourselves up to fight against basic human curiosity, we're picking the losing side right from the start. If we're focused entirely on blocking, intercepting, and negating behavior that is critical to so much of the work that people do today, we situate ourselves as an obstacle and not as a resource. And it's fair to say that clicking on links is critical to much of the work that people do online today. And not to mention how many quotes I've seen from Sun Tzu's Art of War at hacker conferences, where we often see dudes dressed in camos and tactical vests and other aspects of everyday carry. But this isn't the world that I want to live in. And I don't think we're going to make a difference if we continue to think this way. And I'm thankful to say that I think a lot of us are thinking this way as well. We're trying to change stuff. I'd rather take care of people and the things they care about. Using a different metaphor, we change the rules for how we do our work. By framing things with a focus on what's important, the activities that people value, like the things people do to build a successful company or grow an organization or build a business. And this is why I think the metaphor information security as nurturance is important. It also describes how New Relic Security approaches its work, and it's largely the reason why I came to work there. I'm the father of a 14-year-old girl. This is my daughter, Ella. She just got her braces off. She's pretty happy about that. I want to protect her, right? What father doesn't want to? But I don't think the best way to do this is to make war with the rest of the world, to sit on a porch with a shotgun. I would rather help her learn the skills, knowledge, and confidence to grow in the safest way possible. And as any parent can tell you, this requires a lot of letting go of the need to win battles. To meet those goals, I need to be connected with my daughter, spend time with her, so that I can leverage my experience and knowledge to provide her guidance. And I can speak to her interests in the things that she wants to do and what she values, with the long-term goal of empowering her to build healthy patterns of both independence and interdependence. Hopefully she'll develop fluency in being responsible and practicing accountability, both for herself and for others as she grows. So what is nurturance, and how do we practice it in information security? A standard definition of nurturance is attention to nourishment, protection, and guidance to maturity. A nurturance culture is a culture of connection, communication, mutual support, care. It's an active demonstration of being aware of what people want to do and accomplish, be that my daughter or an engineering team that's trying to do some deployments, or a customer. And what does it look like for us at New Relic as a culture and as a practice? What things do we do to build this out? And what does it look like? There's 3 themes that I'm going to focus on in talking about this stuff. We do this by focusing on what's really important, not on the controls we're deploying or our KPIs or any of that kind of stuff. We focus on the things that people want to do. When people come to join the New Relic security team, the first thing I tell them is, your first job is relationship management. So the focus isn't necessarily on the data itself or the systems or the controls we use to secure them, but the goals that people in an organization find valuable. And so we provide nurturance through our interactions and demonstrate active support of what the teams are trying to do. So it's a quality in the way of the way in which information security can engage with others and respond to the needs of the business. So we do this through communication, connection, and accountability, which in turn allows us to inform and empower and trust and build trust. So we inform through communication. We communicate things like context, metrics, dashboards, and any data that's relevant to allowing folks to understand what information security risks are affecting them and their projects. We do the work to understand what the teams are doing and what's important to them, because we want to provide useful information, relevant information, and data to those teams to help show them the context of what might endanger them. So we have a Slack bot that automatically tells people about security vulnerabilities in teams, so it'll just automatically do that for us. So we leverage a lot of automation for that. Our security folks often walk over to teams to sit down and talk with them to see, what's up with that team, what are they doing, but also to talk to them about any sort of issues that are ongoing or maybe in the pipe or coming down the line, or to help them plan out security features or upgrades in their products or their services or deployments. Recently, we also do a lot of transparency, so we tend to hold lots of, not as many demos as I'd like, but we do demos for our teams. We tend to talk very openly about vulnerabilities that we find. We don't secret them. We don't treat them as need to know. We actually try to demonstrate how they work, and we try to encourage teams to exploit them themselves, because we find that the more knowledge we give folks, the more understanding that they have. When we do attack simulations or pen tests, or when we have deep pen tests that are done by third parties, we take the results and obviously we address those issues, but then we turn around and we do a pretty lengthy demonstration or a talk on those results. So it's not, we don't hide stuff, which is really important to us. So we connect, we communicate with things like context, information, data through dashboards as well. And this helps us really learn what they do so that we can understand the why of what they do. Let's see, what else I was going to mention. I think, so this is an example of some of the dashboards we see. Hopefully I did something to obfuscate things, but there's some names. I didn't. Oh well. So we explain things like, when do our security scans run? We actually have dashboards that are open to everybody saying, hey, you think something is attacking your stuff? You want to make sure it's not one of our scanners? Go to this dashboard, take a look at it, and it'll tell you when they're running, how often. And then we do a lot of explanation, like here's all the IPs that are doing. And we're pretty open about that stuff, because we want people to know about that stuff, because we want them to know when something is scanning them that isn't us, and they can tell us. So we do a lot of metrics gathering and presenting that metrics to the people who are probably the ones who are going to understand the dangers to their stuff more than we are. So by communicating and informing, we empower, and we build that connection, just as we make it a priority to share what we see through presentations, insights, dashboards, which is a product that we use in-house, our own product, blog posts, and other channels. We make it a point to connect with those teams and to build that connection even more deeply. We host hackathons, and we encourage people to get together with our teams and actually do kind of an informal pen test against things that they think might be worth pen testing in the company. We hold unconfs where we try to get people to give presentations, that people who are not on the security team to give presentations. We had a pretty successful one recently at the Kennedy School, and it was awesome to hear like the people not on the security team talk about all sorts of really great security topics that are interesting to them, or about the stuff that they're working on. And we find that encouraging that kind of work and encouraging that kind of connection strengthens this culture. Excuse me. Our security teams also spend time to explain why we're asking them to do things rather than dictating what people should do. So we focus on those desired outcomes and goals. We do stuff like host this, BSides. We also host and support things like RSA, other conferences or work that's going on in the community that is aligned with these goals that we have. My experience with traditional security teams, like those I've been on in the past, apologies to people I used to work with at Intel, is to hoard data and secret away the information they collect. You know, we have security operations center rooms that are filled with people in a dark little room with a bunch of monitors clicking like ignore, ignore, ignore. And they only show up when they perceive that something has gone wrong. So we communicate, we connect, And then we use that connection to empower. And through that knowledge and through that work, it allows people to practice accountability. And so through this culture of transparency and the work we do with people, we're able to focus on the tangible and real technical risk to our business and getting people to understand that stuff and making it possible to, for folks who want to be secure, who want to know, they want to do the right thing, they just don't really know what it is. They know about the dangers to their servers and their services, but they need us to translate the technical issues into a relevant set of data that they can use to make decisions about what's actually happening, as opposed to relying on a security team to make those decisions for them. And that, I think, helps our security obligations to our customers and to each other, and it allows people to hold accountability with themselves and with other teams as well. And it allows us to better practice holding people to our SLAs, the results of our security reviews and the requirements we give them. Yeah, so I think we're running out of time, so I gotta move fast. SLAs, some more examples of how stuff that we do. We've got this project in-house called Security Karma that is takes this output of a vulnerability scan and puts it into team-focused dashboards that allow us to prioritize what we think the risk is to them, and it allows them to prioritize their work as they move forward to patch, right? As they go through their sprints and MMFs, it allows them to do a better job of understanding what security work they do and what the priority for that work is. So the evidence that this culture works, I'm still collecting the data. Our security team's pretty young, but I think some of the things that speak strongly is how strong the culture is at New Relic for security. We have, like I mentioned earlier, that first day in the office, people will walk by and say, "Oh, I hope I never have to talk to you." Usually those folks come back a couple of weeks later and say, "I love talking to you." And we have people come by our desk area all the time about whatever issues or questions or projects they're working on. And it's great. People seek us out. They don't run away from the security team, which is fantastic. So Nurturance is a full life cycle process that continues and doesn't necessarily end with a win. And I just want to repeat the things that we do are communicate, connect, and help people practice accountability. And with that accountability, it builds that trust. So it's important to me. I want the industry to change. I want it to align with the kind of world I want to live in. This is a thing I want for my daughter, who sadly at 14 shows no interest of going into infosec, but is really good at Fortnite. I think setting an intention with our language and metaphors is necessary. And I want people to feel like security is not an obstacle or that security practices is trench warfare, but something that is deeply a part of the fabric of doing what we do to make great software, products, services, and whatnot. So my call to you is this. Talk to me about this stuff. Talk to each other about this stuff. Communicate with each other. Connect with your teams. Go figure out what's important to them. Give them the data that they actually might be able to use. And yeah, others are thinking about this. So I'm going to wrap up because I'm being told to go away. Some other things we're checking out, Stethoscope, which is based on OS Query, which is a user-focused security project. Etsy's practices are really good at that, where they do user-focused design as well. Kelly Shortridge has a great blog post called Security as Product that has some parallel ideas. And thank you very much. I appreciate your time.